Before introducing our panelists, I would love to give a very quick introduction to the special interest group and on some housekeeping rules for today's session. So I thank you very much, Wolfgang. We actually really work on the path for sustainable management, and we are the IPMA ESG special interest group. For the ones that already attended some of this session of this special interest group, we share the thought that the sustainable development is probably, it is the most important project in mankind history. And we share, I think, the view on the fact that money is not the problem, because we have the world has invested a lot of resources in sustainable development. The clarity of objectives is not an issue because we actually know what we want to achieve. But what we feel in IPMA is that the risk is that we could fail in this attempt because of the lack of project management, because of the lack of the competencies and the clarity on how to manage this tremendous, huge amount of projects and huge amount of activities that we have in front of us. That's why we created a special interest group of people that are they are engaged in the creation of the sustainability-related project management standards for individuals and organizations. But not only, and this is why we are here, also engaged into the dissemination, dissemination of the knowledge. We talk about Net Plus because we know that the urgency of the situation is very high. We have well understood on macro level of the objectives, but the point is we need to go at meso and at micro level in everyday action of individuals and organization. We don't not only have to reduce the negative impact on the resources, and I see Peter behind Peter there is a wonderful forest. No? We need to reduce the impact we have on nature, on the resources, but also on emissions, on social justice. But we have to create a positive impact, job creation, financial revenues, because we don't have to just take back. We have to move forward. That's why we created this concept of Net Plus. Please continue to be with us. Please continue to contribute. Please continue also subscribing to our special interest group. In the next slide, just a couple of simple rules. The webinar is recorded and it will be made available on IPMA site. Speakers will deliver an introduction, a presentation in 35, 40 minutes, more or less. And we will allow for 10, 15 minutes of Q&A because, as usual, we like to have discussion. We like to have interaction. Any question will be collected to the Q&A button on your screen, and I will manage the Q&A. Okay, if there is any question unanswered, we will have an online follow-up. After the webinar, the participants will receive the digital badge and also CPTs, 1.5 CPTs. You will be asked to submit a feedback regarding the webinar, which is very important for us. And after a few days, the presentation and the link with the recording will be available on IPMA site. Okay? And now I'm really happy I can introduce today's speakers. And I think that today we have a group of speakers with a perfect mix, because we have Wolfgang. Wolfgang Glitzer is a chemist, a biochemist and chemical engineer, but he is also a master in large project management. Okay, Technical University of Berlin, master program in global production engineering, over 25 years of experience, and also a good cook. This I know. Konstantin has a great background because we want to have net plus. So we need to have, I would say, I use Konstantin's background. We need to have a good marketing because it must be an increase of value what we do in net plus. And Konstantin is a emeritus professor in international marketing in ESB Reutlingen. But not only I want to talk about Konstantin background in university, but he is the first marketing and sales manager of the Swatch watches. That's what I mean when we say net plus. We need to bring something which is, and Konstantin, don't take me wrong, a plastic watch, and make it a unique piece of art, of fashion. And we have to work on this kind of perspective. And finally, Peter, last but not least, in the forest of Cambodia, apparently, he is the political scientist. He is the man that makes things, idea becomes reality through the governance of the ideas. More than 20 years in non-governmental organizations, okay, in all over the world, Eastern Europe, Central Asia, Transcaucasia, Africa. Cambodia is behind him, but all over the world, the non-government organization have this responsibility to connect the dots between what we want to achieve and how to achieve it. Last but not least, again, he is a board member for development cooperation with 720 employees and chairman of the board of Foundation, Development and Climate Alliance. If we want this to happen, we have to put together, again, the technical part, the project management, the chemist. We have to explain well, to market well what we want to achieve, and we need to work on the politics, but on the right politics to make the connection with the real world. Sorry for the long introduction. I did it also to allow some of the participants to catch up, and I hand over to Wolfgang because he's the master of the next 35 minutes.
Hey, thanks, Max. I think everybody can hear me. Yeah, One World, Our Responsibility. It's the main title of today. And I hand over to Peter, please. First statement.
Yeah, a very warm welcome also from my side to everyone, and wherever you are. Problems cannot be solved with the same kind of thinking that created them. This free citation by Einstein is the point of beginning of our conversation this afternoon. Well, ladies and gentlemen, industrial development has led us into difficult and extremely challenging situations. The important point by this is to understand it's not a question who to blame. It's a question how we deal with the challenges in solution-oriented way. We must take countermeasures and master the challenges of these climate crises. This requires a very difficult critical reflection on previous patterns and thought and behavior. And this is the point which we wanted to underline with this citation.
Yeah, kind of opening statement. Quite long ago, 2008, on the IPMA World Congress, we got this statement. It's now 15 years since the statement was made at the World Congress. Real progress towards sustainability in the entire economic and industrial environment is still not really in sight. People do not yet have the necessary management systems in place, both from strategic and operational project management perspective. We still have linear thinking, and the separation between strategic and operational levels within organizations is still largely state of the art. Sorry, wrong side. So what we are facing, if you have a look here with ACATech, the German Academy of Technology, shows it, describes our current processes in product development and manufacturing using the terms take, make, waste, as shown here on the slide. We take raw materials from the planet, process them into products, and then dispose them after a product life cycle, however long that might be. In doing so, we accumulate problems that are now having an impact. In this case, it's not just about decarbonization or human activities, but also about the extensive recycling of all available raw materials and the resulting primary and end products. We are called up to rethink and redesign our management system. One world, our responsibility.
Welcome, everybody. So I'm coming to the ethical question. To make it clear again, our planet has not a problem, but we humans are the problem with our behavior. And the philosopher Hans Jomus has summarized the essential. Act so that the effects of your action are compatible with the permanence of genuine human life. That is, including your present choice of future integrity of man as a co-object of your will. Or with other words, you have to include a future situation in your decision of today. When I quote these thoughts of Jonas, quite often people say, oh, it's philosophy, it's abstract. No, it's not abstract at all. It's a reflection of our personal responsibility in the future to our children and grandchildren. If you have children or if you have grandchildren, or you may have both one day, we cover a span of 140 years. That's why we must solve the ecological problem now, also for the sake of future generations. That is the ethical base of our discussion today.
Yes, science is now describing and discussing the planetary boundaries of ecosystems that are crucial for the survival of humanity. You see it here on the slide. This presentation here is an excerpt from a scientific publication from last year. It remains to be seen to what extent these limits have been reached or even exceeded. But in any case, it follows that humanity must change its behavior, and thus also the systems on which actions are based. Du bist stumm, Peter. Peter.
It's important to understand that these limits, just mentioned boundaries in the slide before, are not static. Meaning you probably will not realize at once if you went over. Crossing them does not have immediate, but definitely universal consequences. The effects of exceeding them can no longer be reversed, and definitely not in short term. And last but not least, the national undertaken countermeasures are only effective in an international context. what I'm talking about. If you see this slide, we see 5 different potential development scenarios here on the right-hand side of the slide. The bottom 2 are the scenarios that are compatible with the human species. The top 3 are the scenarios that are not compatible with the human species. Why? Because the temperature in these scenarios are 24/7 so high, even at night, of course, 24/7, that the human organism is permanently dehydrating. And I'm not talking about a scenario which is in future. Ladies and gentlemen, these scenario already happened. In springtime this year in Thailand, few weeks ago in India. And if you see the people below, then you definitely see that we are talking about, as just mentioned by Konstantin, our children and grandchildren. We are talking about a period of life within the next 50, 70 years. Conclusion, we are now deciding in these days, ladies and gentlemen, which world we will leave to our children and grandchildren. This is the responsibility we have.
Just following Peter's thing, we have to follow a paradigm shift. Serve all clients. The planetary changes caused by human activity have a direct impact on its living conditions. If we look at the strategic and operational management from this perspective, the focus is on the client, cooperation due to increasing complexity, and therefore also to the creativity of our actions. However, this overlooks a key factor. I call this the super client, and that's the planet. I cannot express its needs. As humans, we are therefore challenged to understand our super client. And this is a learning process that involves difficulties and, challenges. The client is not actually a cause, he or her. However, we can observe the actions of our planet. And just as a supplement, the client is not actually a client, as he does not really articulate any requirements. However, we can observe the effects of our actions on the planet and see how it reacts. In the end, we have to realize that the planet doesn't need us, but we need him. There are first examples in companies and thus also in the management of facing up to these challenges, called ESG, environmental social governance. In the focus of this understanding, and management must develop methods to implement it. This statement here from UHP points the way in the right direction. Well, but at the same time, we must be aware that this path is long and that a solution to the problem can only be found step by step. The planet, as a super client, is no stranger to the history of mankind. You see it here. This quote from Brundtland Commission was formulated already in 1987. And moreover, an Australian architect called Julia Watson at how indigenous people in deserts, high mountains, wetlands, and jungles ensure their survival through the development and use of sustainable technologies. That means that such behavior is not unknown to humans. We have just forgotten it. The quote from the mythology of the Iroquois makes this clear, as it's shown here. We have only forgotten or overlooked it and need to reintegrate this ancient knowledge into our management technologies. But how to proceed? What to do? What might be the next steps for that? We see here that our current behavior of strategic management and assuming responsibility for its company is not sufficient for the transformation towards sustainability. In future management, responsibility must take into account the requirements of what's called the super client. A run-the-business approach is not sufficient here, like you see it here with strategic level. At the same time, operational management and therefore project management is also challenged. Strategic and operational management must overcome the separation and tackle the challenges together. Well, the planet as a super client has a price, which is increasing. Therefore, we must recognize and accept that he has a price. Therefore, it is on the strategic level on the management to communicate and deliver the prices to the operative level. So we have here what's called mission zero emission as an initial example, which can be described as lighthouses of companies that have embarked on this path. One example is a global corporation with over 100 production sites worldwide, which, as a first step following a management decision, has resolved to decarbonize its production site by 2040. And in the second step, the entire production process is to be made sustainable. The company has achieved outstanding digitalization at all sites of this program, which is being steered by a project management office located in Germany. You know, all managers at the production site are committed to achieving the target by 2040. This is a challenge. However, they have every freedom to take the necessary site-specific measures, such as the use of technologies and compliance with site-specific regulations, which are different from country to country. It is interesting to note that the management for all locations was initially obliged to create the necessary framework conditions for 2 years. You see it here as phase 1 in the diagram. And moreover, for the following 5 years, see here phase 2, they have room for maneuver to make changes to the content and cost framework. And then for the next 7 years, which is phase 3, they have a placeholder for new and innovative ideas. From my point of view, this is a very interesting approach. On one hand, it creates the conditions for all locations to have the same prerequisites. And on the other hand, it gives them the necessary leeway within a manageable period of time. The company has created the conditions to implement these strategic goals operationally through appropriate systems and tools. I think this is a brilliant idea.
Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it's quite clear to me that just looking at these logos makes you maybe think that what is this supposed to have to do with my daily business? Sustainable Development Goals, Agenda 2030, ESG reporting. Ladies and gentlemen, it's exactly your business and your daily business. Because you are the persons who have to organize the transformation, bringing to the ground. And this is because this is where you decide how the world of tomorrow will be shaped. You can see here a selection of so-called tools that helps to set up a sustainability strategy out of different point of views. In principle, such a sustainability strategy you are setting up should focus on a link between the Sustainable Development Goals of the Agenda 2030 and sustainable climate protection. Why? Because without achieving the goals of the Agenda 2030, we will definitely not be able to overcome the climate crisis. This is to be understood. It becomes particularly clear when looking at the current situation, for example, with regard to biodiversity, availability of water, even clean water or just water, etc. I could continue this list. But these examples clearly illustrate the urgent need for action. And that's why have a look to these two.
Okay, go back to sustainable management. We've just learned why it makes sense to change things. By the way, it's much fun to do something new. I think there's nothing more boring than to do everything every day the same rubbish. So when walking on this path, the first thing naturally is to define goals. And these goals have to be based on what Peter just said. They are a concrete exposure to what the sustainable world needs to keep alive. So the first thing is actually to define the goals of your company, broken down to each step on departments, on factories, etc. The strategic level is to take responsibility for our planet and the people with a long-term perspective of decades. Nowadays, we have half a year, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. In future, we have to start thinking in decades. As Hans-Jonas said, include in your present choice, the one today, the future integrity of man or your children or your grandchildren, really doesn't matter. That means you have to define a concrete zero emission strategy. First the goals and then a concrete, not an abstract, I want to be better is not a goal. I want to do this ABC until December 15th. That is the goal. And then you have to transform your business with a groundbreaking innovation strategy, not just a little bit, a groundbreaking one, for all products and services that are geared to the future needs of your customers and which internalizes external cost. Describing your strategy of know-how transfer is as important. You have to think how to educate and train your people. Otherwise, it doesn't work. It's a top-down, bottom-up strategy. You are the leaders in your company, or you are among the leaders. It's your responsibility to make things move downwards and upwards. And then the other way around starts. And in the end, and I call that to put a virus, you put the virus to all your stakeholders. And maybe in a month, 2, 3, 4 months, they show up and say, hey, Peter, I have an idea. And that is because he has put a virus in you which had developed. And that is for me the basic of a strategic level, to have goals, strategies which are implemented by people. The next step is naturally then the operational level. That is reinventing your business with a detailed draft of an operational roadmap. A detailed, not a beautiful sentence about God and the rest of the universe. It has to be a clear strategy and roadmap for your new strategy, broken down in sub-goals per time unit, months or years. You have to select and evaluate your resources and tools to implement this sustainable management idea. And as the boss of Unilever many years ago said, we have to transform our company as long as we've got money. So the longer you wait, the more you're out of business, the less you have the money for the transformation. So that is a question of the strategic and the operational level. You have to transform your management style to a value and meaning-oriented corporate leadership style. You have to motivate your stakeholders. They have to be on board. Now, so the classic approach, we want to make money, that makes no sense at all. It has a purpose. Think of your children, think of your grandchildren. And then you have to implement your strategy with a knowledge transfer. That's again an operational level. When we worked on these presentations, in the end we said, project management is the most important supporting tool for the efficient and effective implementation of a sustainable and ecological company realignment. You are, maybe you don't thought of that, but you are absolutely crucial, because with your tools, with your knowledge, you're able to help to walk this path towards sustainable management. Also, that is the end. Don't forget, you are absolutely crucial on this path to a new strategy.
Coming to the end. The point is, assumption of responsibility for sustainability is a core task in leading enterprises or organizations. So what is the conclusion of all this information? We are talking about enterprises, project management in enterprises, but more. We are talking about a mentality change in how to set up such projects in the enterprises and its network with the stakeholder and deep in the supply chain. At the end of the day, and Wolfgang introduced to you the slide with the super client, if we don't pay the price, this super client is demanding, our planet provides us with these things we need. It will end up taking away what it provides with us. In a nutshell, the super client provides us with our life. And we have, of course, to pay for this. Not for us sitting here, but for our children and grandchildren. So let's take on the challenges ahead of us and preserve a planet worth living for our descendants. The challenges ahead and ahead of us: preserve a planet worth living for our descendants. We have the possibilities, the capabilities, and the skills to organize coming over the climate crisis and setting up a sustainable management and a sustainable economy for our planet. This is our responsibility for the only planet we have. And if you need any support, don't hesitate. We are happy to help you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Peter.
Okay. We make it in good time, I guess. So we have lots of time for discussion and questions and answers.
Bravo, Wolfgang. First, if I may, I start from one point. Wolfgang, you made a very nice example on how an organization approach. I just challenge our audience. If you have if you live in an organization that has a best practice, just tell us, write in the Q&A, yes, they're doing something similar also in my organization. Yes, it's happening also in my organization, because it would be great to see if this is not an isolated case. Meanwhile, I want to pick a couple of questions. Peter, you showed a fantastic slide where the effects of the climate change are on a timeline, and also the age of the people. Okay.
Yes.
And I see that if we look at the decision makers, the decision makers basically are in their 50 to 70, okay, typically in the organizations, in politics, and in companies, in corporations, right? So they will not see the effect, okay? And
Exactly.
Daniela asked, how to encounter, no, the very popular argument of a lot of leaders, so the decision makers, that at the end, there is no money for that. There is not this pressure. There is, because they will not see the effect of their decision. This will be something that is in the day-to-day life of somebody else. But they have their bonuses at the end of this year, not at the end of 20 years from now. And this is, I think, one of the key points on how to make it happen if who is the decision maker is not impacted.
Definitely. This is one of the most important problems, or let me say, issues we have. Unfortunately, yes. The reaction of our doing in terms of how the atmosphere is reacting takes so much time that what we are doing now has a consequence in 30, 50 years. The point is, if you see the reports of the IPPC, and the first one was published a bit more than 30 years ago, I consider that the models and the forecast models they had in these days were not so very accurate as they are probably at the moment. But you can clearly see a clear tendency. And the tendency is that the amount of emissions we have at the moment is far too much for our planet. And it will have consequences in the oceans, in the atmosphere, for the wind, for the so-called passat winds, for the whole climate of the planet. The Arctic and Antarctic are, the ice is melting, the permafrost areas are getting dry and warm. So we are facing all these challenges in future, and we know today exactly that we will face these challenges. And this is our responsibility. And that's why we are claiming that this strategy must be set up by the leading heads of the organization and the enterprises, because they are responsible to make clear that this enterprise they are running with their market shares they have are still in charge with these amount of market shares in 50 or 60 years. And to do so and to make sure that will be demands of them and from them to handle a procedure and a process in industry that will not hurt the planet anymore. This can be seen. And they are blamed, of course, by their own children in the meanwhile, the elder one by their grandchildren even. The youth is coming up all over the world. And combined with the telecommunication industry and tools of telecommunication industry, first of all, the smartphones, everyone in the world, wherever he or she is, see what the consequences of climate crisis are in Pakistan, in South Greece, in India, in Thailand, in Australia, or in Europe, wherever. And so,
Constantine,
yes, they do not see and feel what the consequence of their doing is, but it's clearly can be proved that there will consequences, and the consequences will be bitter.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Constantine, I think you had...
I would like to add something, because I had quite often this problem. What Peter just said is the intellectual reason why. But quite often, the older ones, they are so profit, short-term oriented that they are basically hopeless. But you can get them when you ask them, do you have children? Do you have grandchildren? And normally, if they say no, you ask, do you have a brother or sister? I mean, in your near family, you always have children and grandchildren. And then they say, you know, you should do that because of them. They will be alive in the year 2070, 80, 90. Do you want that they die because they have no chance to survive? And my expression was, that works quite well. Because suddenly it's not on the corporate level, it's on a private one. And normally, most people like their children more than their company. No, so these are the two levels. Don't hesitate to be personal. Say to your boss, do you have any children? Why don't we change something because of your children and your grandchildren? And all the employees' children and grandchildren. No, and then you're not on this abstract level, which gives a reason, the intellectual reason. You'll go down to the very basic one, and quite often that works as an addition to what Peter just said.
Constantine, Peter and Wolfgang, you see that we are rewriting the basic of the corporate management of the microeconomics, because we are rewriting the way, the methodologies that are taught in the business schools about how to run a business. And Daniela says, I'm not sure if we can use the old methodologies of project management, in that case, to these tremendous new and chaotic challenges and tasks. Wolfgang, you are also part of the effort of our project in IPMA to change these rules, right?
Yes, we had to do that. Hello, Daniela Meyershofer. Are you from Consensa, Hamburg? That we know from former days.
But Daniela cannot speak.
She cannot speak.
No.
Because probably I know her from former days, 10 years ago or something like that. Yeah, as Max said, from the SIG ESG and the IPMA, we are just working on the reference guide of the ICP 4.0 towards sustainability. We are just, I think I can say that we are just in the sounding process. The draft is ready, and we hope to release it in Cape Town in the World Congress end of November this year. Well, it's a lot of work, and I think the question is right. Old methodologies towards new challenges we had to handle. We're working hard on that. I had several speeches last year towards to bring the strategic and the operational level together in project management, but all discussion just show me, and I was just last Thursday, Friday on the project management forum of the GPM in Hamburg, discuss with a hell lots of people about that. It's a hell lots of work on a long haul to get these people towards these idea and suggestion and to change it. But we had to do that. We need a long haul. That's there's several ideas, and if you know from former days, we can get directly in contact if you're still with Consensa, and then we can just discuss about that. I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Volkan. I see that Peter has his hand raised. Or shall I go with another question?
Just a brief comment to Wolfgang and maybe a supplement to your question you just asked. Project managers are not the only solvers of the problem, of course, but they are a crucial part. Of course, there are a lot of others who has more or less have more or less to take their responsibility as well. Yeah, the financial part and others as well. And so it's definitely true that Daniela asked. Yes, not only the project or project managers can solve the problem, but once more, if they are starting, they are directly connected to the financial part, to the management part and others, and then you see the lines come together and then you have an impact. That's the point. This is what I want to stress.
Peter,
Right.
you are anticipating some of the key elements of the evolution of IPMA's standards in project management. And I think this will be a great impact. And I would like to move to another impact, another aspect. Enrico says there has been a drive from fast fashion brands. So, I mean, if we think about the brands that need the most marketing activities, like Zara, H&M, to take all the clothes for recycling. However, it has been found that only 5 to 10% are really recycled, and some end up in dumps or sold to third world countries with all the impacts of transportation, etc., water usage and energy that is required for recycling. So at the end of the day, is it a marketing thing without true impacts on the super clients? How do we work to create a real circular economy, a sustainability path, which has, yes, of course, a marketing side, but also a true impact on the super client? And maybe I would start from Konstantin, who is the marketing expert.
Yes, my dear. Marketing is sometimes quite useful and sometimes it's more a problem. And in this special context, I don't think that marketing is very useful. In the meantime, I really think it should be prohibited. This fast fashion, this throwaway fashion coming from everywhere, or at least taxed with 10,000%, because it's just perverse that I get a parcel of 10 euros from China with no days. I use my shirt once and I throw it away. And then you can have a look from the outer space on the desert of northern Chile, where they have a huge garbage of clothes. You see it from this, the universe. No, so I think that in certain cases, we simply have to stop accepting them legally. Because we don't, as we've told today several times, time is running out. No, so those things which make sense, which can be recycled, should become in a circular economy. But there are things which we have to stop, from my point of view, by law. Just say in Europe, we don't accept fast fashion because it's a perversion of the economy, my point of view. So if you ask me for marketing, yes, we need a marketing strategy to tell the people why we have to stop it.
Thank you. Wolfgang, I see your hand.
Yes, some remarks from my side towards the textile problem. Enrico shows up here. You know that nearly up to 90% of all carbon dioxide emissions came from food production, construction, and textile. And one of the main problems in textile is, from my point of view, is the production process. You know, very often cotton and other fibers are linked together, which you cannot recycle because they are so much, from a chemical point of view, so much linked together that it's not possible. That means we had to change the design of the fibers completely. We have to change the production process that recycling and remanufacturing processes are possible. It's still there. For example, last year I had a master thesis of one of my students to try to find out with this elastans if there might be any technology in development or already on the market to get these fibers separated again. The answer is no. Student was quite frustrated, but I told him it is sometimes like this, that you did not find a solution yet. And because there's still research necessary, and there's still a kind of, let's say, change of mindset for redesigning the production process of fibers. And yeah, that was just my remark to that. So, you know, you see, it's a lot of work to do. But it wouldn't say it's not possible. It is possible. But we had to face the problem, and we had to just to react.
Thank you, Wolfgang. Peter.
Thank you, Max. Just a word to the market for regulation. These issues. The point is, almost 25 years ago, the world leadest reinsurance company, Munich Re, said to its customers, which came mainly from industry, ladies and gentlemen, we have a climate crisis. We have an increasing of our costs. We will put these on your account. See and change your behavior. They didn't. Why? Because it was still not so costly for them than to change the behavior. In the meanwhile, we have enormous costs for reorganizing these mountains of clothes in Chile or Mongolia and other parts of the world. We have tremendous costs for reorganization in plastic, for example, especially in Southeast Asia, etc. And what happened at the moment is that the national states say, listen, we have to react, which costs money we haven't, so we are going to the enterprise because they were they are responsible for this outcome, so they have to pay for it. And this is nothing else than the price the super client is demanding, more or less. This is coming back to what Wolfgang said in the presentation. The super client, via these mechanisms, is demanding, listen, you have to go back to me, otherwise I'm starving, or I can't prevent you with the atmosphere, the air, the clean water you need. So I have to be treated, well treated. So the states and the societies have to react. This costs money. The industry have to pay the money. So more or less, this is the context in which we are living. And we have to see it's becoming more and more cost effective and more cost effective to reorganize these procedures in processing than to pay for the waste at the end of the day. That's the point.
Thank you, Peter. It's again a matter of of incentives, and regulation must help take the right decision. I think we all made clear the importance of the action, and there is another question, another comment. Maybe even the leading heads don't understand the exponential curve of the climate processes and the impact we have. But I want to try to close the last 2 minutes on another note. Constantine said, "It is much fun," and I wrote down on my notes the word "fun" to do something new. I would like to say, what can we turn into something that is not dramatic, but fun, but positive, something that engage people. No? Constantine talked about putting a virus, but a virus, I see a negative part. But what I want to say, can we use fun, snowball effect, something that engage people to act in order to help this thing happen? What I'm worried is that when I asked to our attendants, is in your company something similar to what Wolfgang has described? I've seen no example. So we need to make this snowball effect start. What's your thought, Wolfgang?
Just from a biochemical point of view about viruses are necessary for evolution processes.
Right.
You're right. We come from 4 years where viruses were not the best friend. So what is fun?
But there are so many viruses we need because it changed our genetic structure. And that's probably maybe something we had to do here too. I don't know.
Yeah, that's my idea behind. You need a virus to change things positively. Yeah. No? And if you are innovative, if you change things, that is a lot of fun. That is my idea behind. It's not boring. It's the most exciting thing you can do to reinvent everything.
And this is why project managers are happy, because they always do something that by definition has not ever been done before.
Right.
This is our profession, and we are 3:1 p.m., so we are out of time. I really thank our panelists. It has been, for me, engaging discussing in this panel, and I really thank our friends that are connected, our participants, and I again repeat, the video will be available on IPMA website, and you will receive CPD badges, and we ask feedback after the closing of the session. Again, thanks a lot to Peter, to Konstantin, to Wolfgang, and to all the participants.